Story 1. It's not because of politics. My sister is just a fucking bitch. Story 2. In my case, the politics were the last straw. There were already existing issues unrelated to politics with an aunt prior to that. Story 3. My cousin says ditch diggers deserve starvation wages. I ask, once your ditch diggers all starve, who will dig tomorrow's ditch? He dodges the question a few times, then insists there will always be another sucker. I was not the only one who walked away from him that day. Story 4. It is not politics that made me stop talking to him, but politics became part of the issue. He is in his late 50s and has decided that women should not have the right to make their own choices about their bodies. Abortion, birth control, all of it should be illegal. When he was younger, he was grateful women had those choices, and he used them all. Then he met his wife, fell in love, and had sons. He supported women's rights until his youngest turned 23. His sons are in relationships with remarkable women who became successful at a young age. None of them are ready to marry. They have homes, travel, and are living good lives. That is not good enough for him. He wants women's reproductive autonomy curtailed immediately. This did not trouble him until a woman's choice not to get pregnant or marry conflicted with what he wants. His wife has not left him, but she cannot stand to look at him. He became extreme on the subject and made her detest him. When I reacted, his response was not promising. I pointed out that just because he cannot have children, that does not mean someone like me, who is staunchly child-free, is incapable of pregnancy, and that he is being overly controlling of his adult children's choices. He replied, "What do you care? A child would do you good anyway. Otherwise, just keep your legs closed. I am 43 years old. I have earned the right to live my life however I want and with whomever I want." He called me flaky because he thinks I do not know what I want. I have known since I was 6 that I do not want to be a mother. He, on the other hand, completely changed his belief system because his sons are ready for babies and he does not want to wait. Then he told me I was being too sensitive. I have since stopped talking to him. I just hope his children manage to make their own choices and do not let his need to carry on the family line decide those choices for them. Story 5. I lost friends during the coronavirus disease 2019 pandemic. They believed it was fake while my wife worked in the coronavirus disease 2019 unit, watching people die and praying she would not bring it home. It was bizarre to watch good friends fall into conspiracy theories, dismissing it as just a cold while people were dying every day. Story 6. I have very little contact with my father. He strongly supported Donald Trump during his first term and no longer watches Fox News because he considers it too liberal. His health care is through the Department of Veterans Affairs. I am waiting to see whether the inevitable removal of benefits there will wake him up. Story 7. My sister supports Make America Great Again. She told me I should take responsibility for being sexually assaulted. Blessed be, I guess. Story 8. My father-in-law supports Make America Great Again. He has been pro-Trump since the first election. I grew up around politics and can deal with it. The problem is he cannot. Over the years, when he brought up politics, he inevitably became angry at something my husband or I said and stormed off. This went on for years. Then COVID-19 happened. At first, my in-laws got the vaccines and everything was fine. They were Trump supporters, so they were all for it. Then Fox News and the partisan news cycle started. We did not realize it, but my in-laws, especially my father-in-law, became anti-vaccine after a while. When the booster shots came out, we got ours. My husband's parents invited us to their house for his birthday. While there, my husband asked his father if he had gotten his booster yet, and then the conspiracy theories began. He began railing against the vaccines, blaming them for his tinnitus, which I have not heard about since, and saying he had done his own research. I had had enough. I was tired of the lockdowns and of people dying. I stopped holding back and began challenging my father-in-law on the misinformation, and he could not handle it. He was used to saying whatever he wanted while the rest of us tiptoed around him. He accused us of talking down to him, perhaps because both my husband and I have higher levels of education. Then he told us to leave his house, saying he would not be talked down to in his own home on his son's birthday. I was done after that. I could not imagine my parents telling me to leave their home, So I told my husband I would not engage with his parents anymore. They tried to pretend it never happened, but I refused to play that game. I told my husband I would not let it go until I received a face-to-face apology from his father for kicking us out of his house. It took him almost 1.5 years to apologize. I think he realized I was serious. After that, I told him that if he cannot handle civilized discussions about politics, he needs to stop bringing it up constantly. I would not let his comments slide anymore. If he engaged, I would engage. I can discuss without fighting or throwing him out of my house. If he ever did that again, I would not accept an apology. I would leave. We walk a thin line. Sometimes he cannot help himself, but my husband and I now respond in kind. My mother-in-law usually steps in to shut him down. I will never start an argument with him because I respect my husband and his family, but I will absolutely finish anything he starts. Story 9. My wife's and my messenger apps are constantly spammed by my father-in-law with a large amount of Make America Great Again bullshit. I asked him to stop, and he refused because he thinks it's funny that it upsets his daughter. He was an asshole before. Now there are no holds barred. Story 10. It is not politics. It is morals. I do not believe women should die for a clump of cells that causes sepsis, but others believe she should die. I do not support making life harder for my neighbor because of skin color or other differences. I do not support hating and regulating people for choices they make about their own bodies that have zero effect on my life. At this point, politics seems to be all about who should have rights based on gender, skin color, and financial background, and it is ugly. Story 11. A former friend who receives Medicaid and Section 8 housing assistance texted smugly that she had bested the liberals. I responded that she should figure out how to work because her public assistance was being cut and her taxes were going up. Story 12. On Wednesday the 6th, my brother called to rub in his monster victory. On Friday the 8th, my birthday, I received no call. That pretty much sums up where I am in his heart and thoughts. Story 13. It was not just politics. After an acid trip, a number of things clicked and I realized how much I dislike them and do not relate to them. My mother celebrating the overturning of Roe versus Wade and my parents' obvious distress when I protested the Ku Klux Klan trying to hold a meet and greet in my town were the straw that broke the camel's back. Story 14. He was not family but a friend who stood with me through thick and thin for 20 years. I was best man at 2 of his 3 weddings. He was an uncle to his children. We were so close that people at work assumed he was my brother. He was very conservative and we agreed to disagree on many things. That ended on January 7, 2021. What gets me is that he was a decorated combat veteran who had a large stockpile of firearms to defend the country from tyranny. I told him that the people who stormed the Capitol that day were criminals and needed to be fully prosecuted. That was the last time I heard from him. He embraced the Make America Great Again movement, and honestly, I would not feel safe around him. Story 15. I had 2 close friends who became too involved in politics, and I kept brushing it off. Every hangout turned into a rant, and they subtly tested me. If I disagreed, they acted as if I were an idiot. It felt like I was stuck listening to a bad podcast I could not escape. I kept thinking it would get better, but it never did. By the time I finally left, I was exhausted and resentful. Cutting people off is difficult, but sometimes not doing it is worse. Story 16. Most of my family told me that I deserve to die for being transgender and that they hope Donald Trump locks me up so I can be fixed. They had previously been sending me links to conversion therapists who use electroshock therapy to fix gay people. I would rather die than go to one of those places. If you are thinking about harming yourself or others, please seek help now. If you are in immediate danger, call your local emergency number. In the United States, call or text 988 to reach the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. In the United Kingdom and Ireland, call Samaritans at 116 123. If you are elsewhere, contact local emergency services or a crisis line. If possible, tell someone you trust or a mental health professional how you are feeling. Are you safe right now? Story 17. I had a big fight with my mom last night. It ended with me saying that if I lose my rights as a gay person because of Trump, I will never visit or call again, and it devolved into a shouting match. I am not happy about it, but I had to say it. It hurts a lot. Story 18. My dad used to be very liberal. After he retired, he spent too much time following YouTube rabbit holes. Now he expresses conservative conspiracy theories and often steers conversations toward them. Story 19. The timing of this message is on point for me today. I had to cut off my mother roughly an hour ago. This was her second chance, and she blew it. She was always unpleasant, but in the last few elections, politics became her entire personality. She probably thinks this will blow over, but I am done. I cannot reconcile having a relationship with someone who actively supports people who want me dead because of my sexuality. This is not a subject we will agree to disagree on. Before my father died, he asked me to give my mother as much patience and understanding as I could. But he understood there was a limit and sometimes you have to walk away. I have done that. I tried so hard, but she simply does not want to change. She is content to wallow in hatred and bigotry because she thinks it is acceptable. She is the exact opposite of what I believe in, and I would not associate with a stranger who holds these beliefs, so I am done giving her chances just because we share genetics. Edit. Thank you to the people who commented. I really appreciate it. Story 20. We had an incident at Christmas, but without getting fully into it, I spoke with each family member about what happened. Some conversations went well, others did not. I know where I stand with everyone, though. Story 21. I had to break up with one of my best friends. She claimed autism is why Elon did the Roman salute. I have autism, so that was not a great comment. My great-grandparents left Germany during Hitler's reign. I remember reading the heartbreaking stories and letters from the family that stayed behind. Also, when history books are written, I do not want my descendants to think I tolerated Nazis. I do not want to be the kind of white person seen in some civil rights pictures. He who passively accepts evil is as much involved in it as he who helps to perpetrate it. He who accepts evil without protesting against it is really cooperating with it. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Story 22. I have pulled back from my friends and some family. I'm struggling with whether they support everything that is happening and what is in their hearts. Are they anti-diversity? Are they okay with pulling out of the World Health Organization, stopping cancer research, pardoning domestic terrorists, dividing the country, or tolerating this chaos? None of this makes America better. With all the chaos in the news, I'm trying to stay focused on my family and kids and limit the noise and discomfort. I've been wondering if I'm alone. Story 23. To me, this has nothing to do with politics. It is more about morality. Everyone is entitled to their own opinion, but voting is a choice. That means they considered both candidates, what each represented and said, and still voted for that sorry excuse for a person. Story 24. They think it is because of politics, but I do not see anything political about believing that Nazis are bad. Thankfully, they are just some old friends. I come from a fairly progressive family. Story 25. My stepbrother cornered my mom and screamed in her face that she needs to do better research and stop being brainwashed by left-wing media. Because she rolled her eyes and said she did not like Trump, and nothing could convince her he was not a scumbag who treats women and immigrants poorly. He shouted and tried to debate her until she left the house on foot and walked to a friend's. Her car had been blocked by his, so she could not drive away. That was when I realized it really is a cult and that many of them are dangerous. My mom forgave my stepbrother and is back babysitting his children and being kind to him. I have not forgiven him. My siblings and I boycotted Christmas with him and his family. I still will not speak to him. It is not because we believe different things. It is because of where his beliefs led him and what I realized he is capable of in defense of his golden idol. Story 26. I have a cousin I will genuinely never speak to again because of politics. She has very extreme and bigoted views and was absolutely insufferable during Trump's first term. I debated her occasionally but usually ignored her because she had a bunch of douchebag friends who would jump in almost always and turn any debate into a shitstorm. The final straw, and when I decided she was dead to me as a person, was when she turned a Facebook post I had made about my cat, who had just died of cancer after a very long battle, into an argument about Biden and gas prices. I told her I was done with her, told her to go fuck herself, and told her what I thought of her as a person. Then I blocked her on social media and deleted all contact information. If I ever see her in person again, Even if she apologizes, I will let her know I haven't forgotten and will never forgive her. I was going through serious depression and anxiety at the time due to enormous vet bills, work instability from a slowdown in my trade, and recent severe and expensive car trouble that came with no warning. She knew all this was going on in my life and, for some reason, chose to stir the pot unprompted on a post about my cat. Couldn't believe it. She committed relationship suicide as far as I am concerned. Story 27. My sister claims it is because of politics, but she refused to visit our father when he had a stroke because she did not like having to wear a mask in the hospital. She is in for a rude awakening when it comes out that our mother wrote her out of the will. Story 28. I have a trans son. My in-laws not only voted for what I consider the most evil choice imaginable, they also want to have discussions with us because they think we are going down the wrong path and want us to understand the dangers of socialism. My wife just hung up. The kicker is that her mother is facing deportation under the current administration. Without a sincere apology, they will not be welcome in our home. Story 29. I'm a gay woman and my 50-year-old mother registered to vote for the first time to support Donald Trump last year. I probably don't need to elaborate on the why there, but truthfully, it was my last straw in an already strained relationship. Story 30. Because of politics? You mean the things that literally decide what rights women have, the federal minimum wage, also the minimum employers are required to pay adults who work full-time, who is recognized by the government as a person and who they are, the rights of people of color to not be profiled or discriminated against by a bigot's targeting of undocumented immigrants, meals and medical care for children, veterans, and seniors, as well as the existence and power of labor unions, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, the Department of Education, and the United States' position on the world stage. Aid rendered, economic drivers, and strengthening diplomatic relationships. All of those things matter to everyone who lives here, regardless of whether you get into politics, with the only difference being an individual's displayed level of empathy. Trust and believe that the globally recognized economic strength of the United States dollar and the decisions other countries make about trade with us have real and far-reaching impacts on the everyday lives of all Americans. It's a real shame that I cannot spend more time with my best friend from childhood because he is in a relationship with a Make America Great Again supporter. I cannot listen to her complain about government handouts and welfare queens while she unloads groceries purchased with Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program benefits after picking up her special needs child from federally funded daycare. But I respect my friend too much to call her a dumb bitch in his house. Story 31. First, do not ask to borrow money from me while voting for him. It will not be met with a pleasant reply. Story 32. I have gone low or no contact with a few people because they voted to put a treasonous rapist and criminal back in the White House. People say you should not end relationships over politics, but this is not just politics. If you voted for Donald Trump, that means you have a serious flaw in your judgment or character, and I do not want to associate with you. Story 33. I no longer have a relationship with my father and have not for the past 2 years. I am 49 years old and transgender. He supports Make America Great Again, and on top of not accepting me as a human being, he did not contact me for 5 weeks after my wife died from colon cancer. Fuck him. Story 34. I no longer have real conversations with my family. I removed many relatives from Facebook because of how they speak to me on social media, and they have not invited me to family events for a long time. I do not feel comfortable around them anymore. My fiancé and I are having a courthouse wedding because we do not know how long we will be able to marry as a lesbian couple, and we do not want family members who support Donald Trump to be insincerely nice on our wedding day or to tokenize us by saying they are not homophobic because they attended a gay wedding. I have many friends who are transgender, and I do not want to expose them to disrespect from my conservative family. Story 35. Ever heard of parents of estranged adult children? It is probably the #1 reason. When your grown children ask you to stop bringing politics into all conversations and you make it your entire personality, I can understand why. I have never been on the same political side as my parents. We are not American. We are French-Canadian, and they were staunch separatists, which I will never be. Still, they respected me enough not to bring it up, even during election season. It is not that hard to avoid bringing it up. Story 36. They voted for a felon and a rapist. Then they sent me a Bible verse. Fuck that. Story 37. My mother does not deserve a phone call. It has nothing to do with politics. Story 38. I have two baby boomer brothers and a sister-in-law who are retired. They turn on Fox News and One American News Network the moment they wake up and keep them on until they go to bed. Like being connected to Infor. My sister-in-law tried to convince me early in the COVID-19 pandemic that Donald Trump was a patriot and cared deeply about the country on Facebook. My wife and I countered and were blocked. They continue to post right-wing misinformation. The worst part is that both brothers were relatively smart. They seem to have lost critical thinking skills and find it easier to let something think for them. I do not regret the situation one bit. Our parents would be disappointed. It is as if the grown-ups died and the eldest children went off the rails. Story 39. I would not say I refuse to speak, but I definitely avoid unnecessary contact at all costs. I even make up reasons to hurry and leave when I have to be around certain people because it goes against my nature to hold my tongue. When the time does come, however, I speak out loudly and clearly. The last time was just after the election. My father-in-law tried to mention his daughter-in-law's sister, who has a transgender teenager, and how the mother was angry about the election. Pops never talks with his son's wife's sister and usually makes snide comments about her marriage as soon as she leaves the family function. When Pop brought up her being upset, I cut him off before he could continue and said, "Well, Pop, I can see why she would feel that way. As for me, I'm not angry about the election. I'm more disappointed in the people. We have not spoken about politics since that evening. My wife thinks he knows he has struck some nerves with us. I do not enjoy family gatherings, and now I loathe them. Personally, I cannot pretend to enjoy breaking bread with people who supported a campaign based on hate. Policy, sure. Hate, no." Story 40. I cannot understand how family members can claim to love each other and then vote for policies that will harm them. Story 41. It would not be about politics if it had not suddenly become a huge part of their personality. I feel like I have lost them to it. I am able to be a whole person without my political identity being mentioned even once. They are not. Story 42. We have an annual family reunion. I told my mother I am no longer attending if the Trump voters in the family are going to be there. If I do go, I am going to mouth off to them relentlessly until I am asked to leave. Story 43. Not because of politics, but because of morals. Supporting Make America Great Again is now a moral failing, not merely a political difference. I have stopped speaking to them not because we have different political opinions, but because they are bad people and their political views reflect that. Story 44. My cousin and I have opposing political views, but we do not speak anymore because he began cursing me while drunk on social media. So I told him I was done communicating online. I made it clear that I was ending online contact, but we could still speak in person at family gatherings. Apparently setting reasonable boundaries was a step too far. I tried talking to him, but he pretended not to hear me. My spouse even tried to make small talk, and he did the same. It may seem to be about politics, but it is usually more about the person's character. Story 45. I decided to cut ties with a friend after he tried to convince me that Haitians were eating cats and dogs. I miss him. Sometimes I still see a funny meme and think I should send it to him before remembering that I had blocked him. Make America Great Again sucks. Story 46. Beyond hello at family gatherings, I have not spoken to an uncle in many years. I occasionally spoke with his wife, but that changed a couple of years ago. I lost what little respect I had for her when I found out she, an obstetrics nurse, is opposed to vaccines. It is not entirely surprising considering who she married, but I was deeply disappointed. Story 47. My nephew had dropped off my personal radar somewhat, and in my curiosity I searched Facebook for his mother, my brother's bonkers second ex-wife. I found his Facebook page, and he had changed his first name to what I assume is a nickname. Some of you may remember the Christchurch mosque shootings nearly 6 years ago, when a lone fascist gunman killed about 50 people in New Zealand while pursuing his deranged beliefs. In the aftermath, several neo-Nazi groups in New Zealand disbanded as local wannabe Nazis tried to put as much distance as possible between themselves and the killer. Not my nephew, though. To this day, his Facebook page still uses the web address of one of those disbanded groups and shows photos of neo-Nazi regalia and friends with neo-Nazi tattoos. I do not speak to him anymore. He is the one person I actually fear. My brother, my nephew's father, is an asshole in his own right. I hold that his abandoning his son to the kid's conspiracy theorist mother at the insistence of his equally toxic third wife has a lot to do with his son's drift into extremist views. So my brother is also cut off, partly because he is right-wing and generally toxic, and partly because I do not want him to be a conduit for any contact with his fascist son or his son's associates. Story 48. I have definitely separated myself from many interactions with my family. I cannot fathom supporting any of these ghouls in power now or believing you are on the just and moral side of history. It is disgusting, and I will not take anyone who voted for this horrendous nightmare seriously. I am immediately suspicious of anyone who does not seem angry or concerned about the last few weeks. Story 49. I am transgender, and some family members went out of their way to gloat about their vote, knowing what it meant for me and breaking the silent agreement. It was a final straw and a big one because they did not have to bring it up. Story 50. I tried to talk to my parents after the Supreme Court of the United States declared Trump an untouchable king and explained how that is not normal or American, but my dad called me stupid and gullible for believing everything I see on television. Story 51. I was disowned for the second time over politics. I am called a lunatic social justice warrior. They forgive me but say they cannot spiritually be around me. I do not want my transgender brother, who was also disowned, to be murdered or abused because that would be a huge sin. Laughing out loud. Story 52. My brother-in-law came out as an avowed Nazi. I am the only Mexican in the family. I do not like Nazis. Story 53. At this point, it is not about politics. It is about morals. Even if everything turns up roses in 4 years, the way we do it matters. Both outcomes could lead to a more perfect union. The only question is whose vision. Story 54. I am not speaking to my brother-in-law because the dumb motherfucker thought coronavirus disease 2019 was not real and later died from it. His children deserved better than he gave them. Story 55. Not because of politics. It is because my friend of 8 years said that women and children, families, deserve to be separated and that whatever happens to them is fine. She said they are criminals for crossing our border at any time, so if they are raped, trafficked, or murdered, it is on them. This is my Christian friend from church. I do not speak to her. We are not friends anymore. Story 56. The issue is the fusion of fundamentalist evangelicalism and politics. The combination often produces intolerance, anger, and a desire for revenge rooted in a strong perception of persecution. This creates a closed mindset that resists logical discussion and is difficult to change. Story 57. My parents fly a Trump flag. I am queer. They do not believe me when I tell them what Donald Trump has done or said, and they repeat the nonsense that the commentators on Fox News tell them. I have concluded they will not listen, and their views align with people who actively want to harm me, so what is the point of talking to them? Story 58. My husband's family. We never really shared the same morals. They are extremely religious. I believe in gay rights, transgender rights, women's rights, public schools, and other similar causes, and they did not. In fact, I heard some of them openly make fun of gay people, but I was able to overlook it and maintain a somewhat good relationship with them. Fast forward to 2024. My husband and I were pregnant with our second child. We were so excited. They were excited too. At the 12-week ultrasound, we found out our baby was very sick and likely would not survive to birth. We had to terminate in another state because we live in a state with restrictive abortion laws. We went through so much trauma because of those laws. I will not get into all of it, but it is something we will never get over. His family did not know how to be there for us and, frankly, did not try hard enough. I had plenty of family and friends who did support us, so I know it was possible for them. They just did not. Then, to add insult to injury, they all voted for Donald Trump. I even had a meeting with my mother-in-law and showed her everything we went through, including our baby's belongings and the steps we had to take. She argued that it was not Donald Trump's fault and that the issue should always have been handled by the states. I told her we could agree to disagree. I put myself out there and tried to heal the relationship, and it is not going to be healed. How can I ever look past that? Cannot, and I will not. Story 59. Because they can't wrap their heads around the fact that Trump is not a good person and that he doesn't care about them. My uncle thinks Elon Musk is the Einstein of our generation. Story 60. My father surprised me. My siblings and I confronted him and asked him not to vote for Donald Trump. He has been a Republican since President Reagan. I thought he would roll his eyes, but he truly listened. He voted for Kamala Harris, not because he thought she was a great candidate, but because he is the kind of person who will listen to and support his children long before he would listen to and support a politician. Story 61. I have a transgender child, and not one of my in-laws voted against Donald Trump because they said they do not like the way Kamala Harris laughs. They think she believes she is superior, and she lacks foreign policy experience. Last week, the Trump administration removed transgender, queer, and other identities from its civil rights page for gay Americans. It now refers only to lesbian, gay, and bisexual Americans. The government no longer acknowledges my child's existence. They are completely dead to me, and fuck them forever. Also, some of them are plain fucking assholes regardless of politics. Story 62. I have family I haven't spoken to since the summer after Barack Obama was elected. They became full supporters of the Taxed Enough Already movement because he was black. Story 63. I completely cut off one sister and her son, 2 aunts, and 2 cousins because of their behavior on Facebook after the election was called. I was already at odds with them before that, and this sealed the deal for me. I also blocked 113 people on Facebook before I realized the problem might be that I was even on the site. I deleted Facebook soon after and moved on. I have not felt any sense of loss. Story 64. I am currently the odd one out. Why? Because I believe in human rights and I vaccinated my children. Also, I will not believe that my sister and her husband are chosen by God to be prophets. Story 65. I had to block some people on Facebook because they were posting very obvious lies and I tried to correct them. They got mad at me for being mean, so I blocked them for my own sanity. When I see so many lies, I tend to point them out, but they do not want to hear it and it only frustrates me. Story 66. Life is too short to spend time with people who hate me for existing, who believe I am not entitled to the same rights as they are, and who do not share my values. Story 67. My entire family is in the Make America Great Again cult. I am white, married to a black woman, and have biracial children. I could not let the racism slide any longer. Once conservative media started pushing diversity, equity, and inclusion, they became intolerable. I could not overlook the horrible things they have been saying to us. It is amazing that watching Fox News 24 hours a day will make you look down on your own grandchildren, nieces, and nephews. Fuck the conservative media. They should be held accountable for the things they spew. Story 68. They voted against my human rights and the future of my children and their grandchildren. Fuck them. They think they know better and are better than this King Tangerine. But here we are. Story 69. I blocked my mother, both my brothers, and their wives. I just do not want to hear the bullshit anymore. I am sick of the hate, the rhetoric, and the parroting of whatever Trump says. I am not listening to people who have never set foot in a college yet somehow claim to know how everything works. I have better things to do with my time than argue with them, because you cannot reason with the unreasonable. My life has been quiet, and I am happy. Story 70. Refusing to engage with anyone who still supports Trump is hardly about politics anymore. It is about human decency. Story 71. I lost a friend over politics. I cannot accept voting for what I see as evil. If there were a war, we would be on opposite sides. I miss her very much, but every time I see the news, I think about how she voted for this chaos. If having a president who is a bully and blasphemous makes someone feel good, I cannot reconcile that right now. I have never felt this way about Republican beliefs before, but Donald Trump is the great divider. He claims he will stop wars in other countries, but his actions promote war and hatred in his own country. Story 72. I am not talking to my sister. She voted for this shit. I cannot get past it. Her self-pitying social media posts about how the world is so mean to her because everyone should be okay with the fact that she supported a fascist make it worse. Story 73. I ended a friendship with one person who refused to stop reposting hateful videos about transgender people and conspiracy theories. We had many political disagreements before that, and those were fine, but I will not associate with bigots. Aside from that mistake, I chose my friends well. Story 74. I did not think I would find myself here, but I am not speaking with my parents who support Make America Great Again. They act like devout Christians, and I have no doubt their faith is genuine. However, so-called good evangelicals often trip over themselves to excuse anything and everything President Trump does. It is gross. They have displayed a shocking lack of morals, compassion, and common sense. As much as I love them, my view of them has changed. They are not who I thought they were. This is recent. I had hoped that, after the inauguration, when he began doing what we expected, they would realize their mistake, but they did not. Story 75. I asked my father-in-law what he meant by a comment suggesting violence against lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer people. I am a woman marrying his daughter this year. He screamed at me for 90 minutes, saying I was putting him on a cross, that I would be thrown off a cliff in Palestine, a region I have never discussed with him, and asking how I feel about pedophiles. It was the most unhinged tirade I have ever heard. I have chosen not to speak with him unless required. Unfortunately, we work together, so that is unavoidable. Story 76. This is a tough situation. Managing relationships like this is hard because it affects my opinion of people. My dad voted for Donald Trump. He is my only parent and was raised in a religious family. His father was a Baptist minister. He does not agree with every single position, but he still votes that way. My siblings and I have argued our positions with him and changed his mind about many things. I do not think I will ever get him to vote for the Democratic Party, but I do think he can evolve. I have two friends who agree with me on basically everything, but I think the religious aspect explains why they vote Republican. None of my friends voted for Donald Trump. When I am around them, we do not debate. Almost all of my husband's friend group voted for Donald Trump. My husband has been friends with these people his whole life, and I have been friends with them for 15 years. It enrages and saddens me that they voted this way. We do not see them often, and I am avoiding hanging out with them. I am so angry about it all, and I know my husband, who loves to debate them, will bring it up, and I cannot be around that. I will not be respectful, and I will be confrontational. I do not want to blow up my husband's relationships with his lifelong friends. In this case, it is best for me to avoid anything political with them and limit contact. I had a ton of acquaintances and old classmates who have come out of the woodwork over the past 5 years, and I immediately cut them off. I do not even feel anything. I am just done with them. Story 77. My adult children hold political views opposite mine, so we do not discuss politics. This is the elephant in the room. Story 78. Oh boy. My mother lost her shit when Bernie was fucked over 8 or 9 years ago. Me? No biggie. Hell, I like Bernie. Then it got worse. Now she believes Kamala, Obama, and the Clintons have conspired with the Illuminati to keep us all slaves. I know this sounds bizarre and made up, but sadly it's not. My mother is now 80 and she refuses to speak to me. I'm not even a goddamn Republican, but it doesn't matter. It's been 4 years now, and I've lost my mother. Story 79. Politics has shifted from considering what each group values and aligning myself with that group to a mindset of whether people deserve basic human rights and decency. If people choose to side with leaders who want to strip others of their humanity, then fuck them. Story 80. It didn't matter too much to my extended family how many times their fellow Make America Great Again supporters and Donald Trump spouted anti-Semitic rhetoric. Their orange idol was more important than their Jewish nephew. I stopped being polite about it, gave them a chance to come to their senses, and cut them off. Elections have consequences, and I refused to waste time being polite to or spending time with bigots or those who tacitly supported bigotry. I was much happier and more at peace without them in my life. Politics was not the only reason I cut them off, but it was definitely the final straw. Story 81. My cousin brought up Nazi ideologies, saying people with special needs should not be given any education or assistance because they are a drain on resources. I reminded him my son is autistic and that the Nazi solution was murder. I also reminded him that our grandfather fought the Nazis, which left him traumatized and affected his children. Since he has shown he is a threat to my son and my friends, I told him I would treat him the same way my grandfather treated Nazis in wartime. Story 82. I am not speaking to my father because he decided he could get away with verbally abusing me at age 30. The politics certainly did not help. As Brennan Lee Mulligan said, "Before you were a fascist, you were a bully." That seems to be a common denominator among many people I see who go no contact. Story 83. My background is Guatemalan. My family immigrated here in the 1980s because of the American-backed Civil War. All of my aunts and cousins are conservative and feel more connected to the United States than to their roots. Some do not even want to speak Spanish. I have purposely distanced myself and will keep communication to a minimum. I used to respect them as family because that is how my mom raised me, but not anymore. Honestly, they have always been mean and shown no empathy. Most are devout Christians. They have been very vocal about voting for Donald Trump. We were in Guatemala recently for a funeral. My aunt said she agrees with many things he is doing and disagrees with some. I was going to say something, but because it was a funeral, my other aunt told me not to make a scene. When she left, I told people that none of what he is doing is good. We are in California, which is a democratic state, but when I see something in the news, I think of my family. Knowing they support this makes me want to tell them, "Fuck you. Thanks for letting me vent." There is no point in having discussions with them. My cousin has said offensive things about Black people and Latinos, and when I speak up, he says we are too sensitive. I will continue to speak up, but will not waste my energy on people I consider brainwashed. I will avoid them and am working on building a community of like-minded people. Story 84. We have moved out of their social circle, and they are not invited to join ours. Last week at a family dinner, my wife placed a platter of corn on the cob on the table. I could not pass up an educational moment with my 7-year-old granddaughter. I told her that each kernel of corn is a seed, and that when that seed is planted, a cornstalk will grow. On each cornstalk, we would find 3 or maybe 4 full-size cobs of corn. My granddaughter was amazed. She told me we could feed the world. Then she asked why the world has starving people. I replied that it is because of rich people and some politicians. Does anyone else find it ironic that the richest man in the world is trying to kill the United States Agency for International Development? Story 85. This situation is like spending time with someone who gives your abuser the tools to hurt you. Whether they are friends or family, they are voting in ways that harm you. On top of that, they tell you you will be fine without reproductive rights and claim it is better than communist or socialist Democrats, as if the polar opposite, fascism, is the best choice. There is no accountability for what Donald J. Trump does or says. People excuse him by saying he does not mean it that way or that he is not racist. I am a woman and Latina. I feel like I live with a target on my back. To be racially discriminated against, jailed unfairly, or shot. Those are the extremes. His rhetoric will affect my life socially and professionally. I refuse to have children because I fear I would not be able to choose my own life if something tragic happened during a pregnancy. That is just the beginning. Tell me who your friends are and I will tell you who you are. If you feel that Donald J. Trump is the kind of man you would vote for and have a beer with, I know what kind of person you are. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.